started at scheduling, but I guess we're going to do a 30-second delay instead of by the time we cut off, we have to wait for the 30 seconds.
That's a pretty job.
So true. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
I'm having a cough stage now.
Look at this.
What is that? Is that cyanide? Thank you.
Yes. No, I'm kidding. Oh.
Good to see you.
Passing drugs here.
I think you do too.
Just point it down.
I got the name of one. I didn't get the name of the guy sitting down.
That's great.
Council, we'll go ahead and get started. One of you want to provide our pledge?
Sure, do the pledge.
All right.
Honored to.
Everyone here?
Yep, I think we're ready.
I think we're ready to go.
Maria, are we ready to start recording? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you out to our City Council meeting this evening. We appreciate all of you in attendance. We'll begin our meeting this evening with an opening, which I will provide, after which Councilmember Chris Snell will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Our kind, gracious Father in heaven, we're gathered here tonight as citizens of Kaysville with grateful hearts for the opportunity that we have to be here to discuss the items before this evening's City Council. We appreciate all those who are active in the government process, those who are joining us tonight in person and viewing online. We appreciate their desire to become more knowledgeable and involved in city operations. We're thankful for all of those who serve our city very well and for the wonderful community that we have and the peacefulness and happiness that resides here in Kaysville. At this time, we pray into the City to please bless this meeting of this evening, that we will have the spirit of cooperation and open dialogue and open minds, that we will be able to discuss the items that are important to those who are in attendance. We ask you to please bless those who serve this city, especially those who are serving our country, both at home and abroad, that they will be protected and watched over, and know of our support for them. We're thankful for this opportunity to gather here this evening and say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Will the audience please rise? Give the proper salute and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. To get started on this evening's agenda, we do have agendas available on the wall over here to your left. You're more than welcome to grab one and check off as we move through this evening's agenda items. To get started, we'll also have introductions. I would point out that Councilmember Adams is not seated up here with us this evening, but he is joining us via telephone and will be participating with our proceedings over the telephone this evening. I'll start. My name is Steve Hyatt, serve as the mayor of Kaysville City.
Jake Garn, City Council.
Susan Lee, City Council.
Chris Snell, City Council.
Larry Page, City Council.
Dave, do you want to say?
Dave Adams, City Council.
John Thacker, City Manager.
Maria Devereaux, City Reporter.
Dean Story, Finance Director.
Andy Thompson, Engineer.
Lyle Gibson, Zoning Administrator.
Thank you. The next item we have on our agenda is Volunteer of the Month. We will turn the time to Councilmember Chris Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to come forward to do this. It's a little easier for those who we are honoring as the Volunteers of the Month. But as for those who do not know, or who are viewing for the first time, once a month, our Parks and Rec Department honors one of its many volunteers who provide hours of selfless service to our community in one fashion or another. There are many volunteers who do many things, and this month we are, it is my distinct honor to honor Beth Rhodes, who is our Volunteer of the Month. Beth, will you please come and join me up here? Please join me. Beth grew up in Kaysville and did everything from marching band to, we have this in common, lifeguarding at Cherry Hill. She was very involved at Davis High in band, seminary, and basketball. After graduate school and moving back to Utah's hometown, Beth decided it was time to give back to the community and that gave her so many opportunities as a teenager. Volunteering to coordinate the annual Easter egg hunt, wow, at Barnes Park seemed like a perfect way to start community involvement. Where else can months of planning begin and then end in 5 minutes? It's wonderful to see the children of my high school friends that now live in Kaysville at the Easter egg hunt. It's my generation's turn to step up and keep the traditions alive in our amazing town. Beth and her husband Sam love being outside, whether it's snowshoeing, skiing, camping, backpacking, swimming, visiting museums, or riding bikes to one of the many city parks. This family of 4 takes every opportunity to be outside enjoying our community. So Beth, we have a plaque honoring you as our April Volunteer of the Month for Kaysville. That is yours. And we also have a little, I apologize, we got slightly torn on the envelope here, but I promise the contents are still there. A little gift for you to give you thanks. So thank you very much. If you don't mind, come back and we'll join the council for some photos. Yeah, we'll be right there. They'll come all around here in front. We'll take some photos. Another round of applause for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you
Thank you again, Beth.
For those of you that attended the Easter egg hunt this past Saturday, you do have to say, I think that's one of our civic events that our volunteer who chairs and does that puts in the most, she probably puts in the most amount of work preparation for the least amount of enjoying time. So that ratio, because it is done in about 60 seconds, it's pretty impressive. But we were jokingly saying if there's a way that we could get that to happen the day after the 4th of July on Main Street, that we could just get people to clear all of Main Street just down in, but we've got some ideas about that. So thank you very much, Beth. Next item on our agenda is parking on 225 East Street. And Chris Bowling. Is Chris here? Okay. We'll revisit that in just a moment if we see Chris come in. Next on our agenda then is discussion of ways to improve relations with small businesses and the information given to consumers. Turn the time to Aaron Johnson.
I am not that tall. Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to give me an extra one? I'll give it to Dave.
Hi, I'm Erin Johnson, and I am a small business owner with Hum Shop LLP. We host events and try to bring the community to the small businesses in a way that the small businesses can profit as much as possible. So we have been working with small businesses throughout the county and the Wasatch Front and realized that there are a lot of businesses frustrated with consumer involvement because the consumers don't know where to find them and go to general stores where they know they can find a little bit of everything. And so talking with Kaysville residents, because we are Kaysville residents, we noticed that this was a good place to start with Kaysville's historic Main Street and some of the businesses there. So I took a look at Kaysville's page to see what was available for businesses and consumers to find, because last time I had looked, it was a little outdated. Not all the links worked for the businesses that I tried to look at. Sorry. And I found the brand for Kaysville City. And I want to point out a few of the things that it said. It said Kaysville boasts a historic Main Street in the middle of everything. Middle of Davis County, middle of the highways and the freeways, middle of Salt Lake and Ogden. It really is Utah's hometown in the middle of everything. One of the oldest cities and one of the most beloved cities. I think everyone from Kaysville really takes it with them anywhere they go. I'm from Kaysville, I'm a Dart. And we're proud of it. I'm proud of it. I'm like a 4th generation Kaysville Dart, so I think it's great. But then when it goes down, it talks about needing to attract businesses. And not only attracting businesses to come to Kaysville, but to succeed, businesses need sales and growth. So we need to talk about how we can get the sales and growth. And it actually mentions that. It says locals experience destinations in Kaysville without having to leave. But everyone keeps leaving. If you'll actually look at the 4th page in your packet, I did a little bit of math. So Kaysville's population is roughly 30,000 people, and we have 1,000 businesses, around 1,000 businesses. So I called a few that I knew were around town, a few off of the directory that I used from the Kaysville site, and I talked to them. How many average customers do you see a day? I talked to people who are manufacturers, I talked to automotive people, I talked to restaurants. I talked to something from everywhere. And they said their numbers, and I calculated that with their number of hours. And the average small business amount of customers in Kaysville shops is 3.8 people an hour. And that is, no, that's a day. I'm sorry, that's a day. 3.8 people a day using our population, that means less than 13% of Kaysville consumers are staying in Kaysville businesses. So I want to find a way that we can encourage consumers to stay in Kaysville, which I know you do too, because it's part of the city plan. So I thought we could start a discussion and ideas of ways to encourage those businesses. So I put a little thing in here. You don't have to do it now, but I challenge you to do it because it was actually harder for me than I thought it was, to write down as many of the 1,000 businesses as you can think of in Kaysville, and there's only 40 spots, and I didn't fill them. And I got stuck. I thought, well, there's that mortuary there, but I don't know what it's called. And I know there's an automotive shop over here, but I've never been there. And so it was eye-opening to me as someone who's always tried to support small businesses, how little the average consumer knows about Kaysville small businesses. So are there ideas that any of you have on ways that we can fix this, or things that you've been working on as a council?
Well, I'll just mention one thing that kind of indirectly does that we're working on is the Play Unplugged program, where children can go to, after they do certain outdoor activities, get away from their phones, healthy lifestyle activities during the summer. They can earn certain grab badges by going into local businesses, and the local businesses then sponsor those grab badges. So that gets, of course, parents and students. Because a lot of people might not know. I mean, I didn't know, if I hadn't been on the council, I probably wouldn't have known that the grist mill was going in. It's, I noticed the stores, and yet we went the other day, and it's wonderful. So I've always tried to, go to Kaysville businesses and enjoy doing that. But if you don't know they're there, you can't really go to them. So
Definitely. That's the problem we've had. We've only met lots of these businesses because we were approaching them as another business. Studio K on Main Street, just across the street. She's been there since November and gets about 3 customers a day because people just don't know she's there. You can't see her, there's cars, people don't utilize the parking on the street quite as effectively as they should, I think. So it's hard to get to those businesses. It's hard to meet those people. So a few ideas we've kicked around with some business owners and some members of the SBDC up at the BATC are hosting events that the city could partner with committees or small planning agencies, that we could do events in the parks in the summer where small businesses come out and meet their consumers face to face. And we've talked to marketing agencies who have suggested things like green receipt tape, so a certain amount of purchases in small businesses equals points. And you could have a gala where you do auctions and those points count towards that auction. So it shows that you're supporting local businesses. Or we've had suggested by business owners to link it to the farmers market at the Utah State Farms that we do down the street. That's what they're called, right? Mm-hmm. And have that Thursday be Small Business Day, where you go to the farms, you go to the small businesses, and you do your shopping on that day. So we just had a couple ideas we wanted to throw at you and maybe start an open discussion, ways that we could start improving that so that we can make Kaysville the destination, because we know that you want to do that, and we know we want to bring in bigger businesses like Smith's and Neaters. But the way to bring businesses in is to show that business is already thriving and our small businesses aren't thriving. So we wanted to help improve that and bring revenue to the city. So do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, hey, Aaron, who's with you that helps you out, or do you have
my partner, Sarah Halabaluke,
Okay.
and we've got a few small business owners. Zach Call over at Lisa's Passion for Popcorn is a good friend of ours and has been helping us in this. People throughout a few different cities that really are on board with the idea to change the way small businesses are supported. Because Utah, I'm sure you've probably heard this, is the #1 state for business and growth and small businesses.
Yeah.
But the consumers aren't supporting that. So we want to change the consumer's mind by using the infrastructure the cities already have, like email lists or the newspapers to send out and make a call to the consumers to step up and do what they need to be local in the community and make it a community. They say it takes a village, and we need to revitalize that village.
Okay, what made you decide to do this?
We both do direct sales, separate companies, and we're talking about hosting events, and a lot of our friends in our direct sales company said, oh, you need to go to bridal shows, you need to do this. And we said, we can't afford that. We're stay-at-home moms. We can't afford $1,000 to go to an event all day to maybe make some money. So we started doing events ourselves. We have one coming up next Saturday, doing events ourselves so that we could let the small businesses profit from it. Because you don't need to charge $1,000 to host an event. We just charge at cost and then bring the consumers in. So
All right,
What event are you having next Saturday?
So our company Come Shop. It's our spring expo. We've got 50 vendors from across the Wasatch Front, local Utah companies coming in, sharing what they have with the community, and we have a concert scheduled. Bounce houses, Dart Side of Utah, it's in Layton, their Nerf gun arena, kind of like laser tag, but with Nerf guns. They're coming and putting up a shooting range. We want it to be really fun for the kids, scavenger hunts, coloring, but somewhere that the parents can go and meet the businesses in the area.
Great. And where's that being held at?
The Davis Conference Center in Layton.
Okay.
And you all have tickets in the mail coming to your offices or homes, I guess.
Excellent.
So please come support the local businesses.
You know, I really appreciate how proactive you're being with
Thank
this.
you.
I know it's a tough business especially when you're starting.
It is.
And you don't have the money like big businesses, and yet it's a lot of money to market and do those things. So to be creative like that is really, it's encouraging to hear. And
Thank you.
you know, the best that we can do is, you know, we can utilize parts of our newsletter in promoting these things if we know that they're coming up. I know we only do a newsletter every other month, is it?
Mm-hmm.
And, but if we know that, then we can definitely do that. I know that our website, Kaysville City's website, does have the
An activities page. I saw that.
yeah, and it does have where you can actually look up businesses in Kaysville. If there's ways we can improve that, we're always open for suggestions or ideas on that.
I personally using it today just to explore it a little bit more because it'd been a while since I'd used it. It's not quite up to date. There were a lot of things that I'm sure it's maybe because the businesses haven't licensed with the city, but businesses that have been here as long as I can remember, being a Kaysville resident, I mean, tanning that's over on 2nd North, whatever it's called, the tanning place. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, the only tanning place. And some of the newer places, I tried to search them and they wouldn't show up. So I had to go to Google to look them up because they didn't show up on the city page. But there were things I'd never heard of, like Egan Automotive that's been here for 10 or 15 years that were on there because they're an established business. So I think it's a lot of the businesses not registering with the city, and that's another thing we need to do is inform the businesses how to do that.
And get the word out. I
Yeah.
agree.
When we launched that website, KaysvilleBiz.com is the domain that we purchased with it, and we contracted with a company. The city manually uploaded every business onto it, at least businesses that had business licenses, because
Yeah.
you should be operating with a business license. And then when we sent out business license renewals, we sent them their credentials to log in. Some businesses were really good at doing that and actually upload keywords, and they can add. So for example, if you're a tanning salon, you can type in tan or bronze or anything, and so some keywords so that people can search. But I think we periodically will do a newsletter article reminding folks about that. But anytime that we can get folks that'll, like you're doing today, that'll come help us think outside of the box on how we can participate, it's a huge help.
Yeah, so we'd love to partner with you or the county if you think that would be better to get the businesses out there face-to-face with the customers and organize events where we can put them in the newsletter. People know where they can show up to meet their local business owners and see that there's a boutique available, or handmade soaps, things like that. We have an antique store, but I don't know if anyone ever goes to it, because a lot of the businesses we've talked to on Main Street just can't stay open all day because no one ever comes, so they just have to say, I have to go home, I can't keep the lights on anymore. And so they've had to start closing because the consumers aren't coming to them, and it's compounding the issue. So we need to work with those businesses and educate them. Not necessarily Kaysville, I know you've got a lot on your plate, but it would be great to find a partnership where we could bring people in to educate the businesses what they need to do, getting their business license, making sure things are up to date, staying in their shops, being open, and getting the consumers aware that they're there.
I would, probably one thing that comes to mind, Councilmember Lee, is part of her responsibilities includes the Chamber of Commerce, which she participates with, and then Kaysville Businesses. She's kind of our liaison for that. And maybe the two of you could sync up, and she could provide you some opportunities or some ideas of how the city might be able to help get the word out, and then maybe come back with some recommendations if that's okay with you.
That would be great. Yeah, we
definitely.
would love that.
Yeah, and you know, I know at one time we actually, it hasn't been done for a while, but they used to spotlight businesses at every city council meeting, but that stopped along the way, and maybe we can start up some kind of, you know, way of doing that again and bringing that more publicity that way.
That would be
for
great.
businesses. So.
And the other thing that's sort of a little longer term thing, but the City Council and Planning Commission can be involved in, and that is, you know, as opportunities come to sort of redevelop areas of the city, to think about that, because, you know, our Main Street is beautiful, but what's the anchor that brings people here? And even things like the park now, the splash pad, that could help bring people downtown. But sometimes not that we're going to have the anchor thing like City Creek in Salt Lake or Farmington Station in Farmington, where you have an anchor and then everyone comes and they notice the other businesses that are there in that area. But to the extent that we can have attractions to bring people into the area, and redevelopment's one of the things that can do that, like on the west side where the new Smith's is, then the other stores benefit from people going to Smith's and saying, oh, there's a Kneaders there, you know, and the same thing could be true of downtown as we get the opportunity over time to redevelop that, to think about even things like trails and traffic and parking, and all those things play into how easily accessible and convenient it is for people to find the businesses in the downtown area as well.
Yeah, just to walk down the street instead of, because I know we have a crosswalk here, but it's pretty fast. It's hard to see that someone wants to get across, so I know a lot of people won't use it because it's so fast. So yeah, I think that's great, utilizing that redesign to bring attention to those businesses.
You know, something I would really like to see too is it really needs to be an education to the people. I know in my personal life, and it's taken me years to get this point, I can't tell you how many times I'm on fumes in my truck, but I want to make it to Kaysville because I want to fill up in Kaysville. And there's a reason for that. You know, I want to support Kaysville businesses, and I think about it all the time. And my wife's very good about it as well, and my kids that live at home are good about it. And I think that not only is it where people understand what kind of businesses we have, but they need to understand the great benefit it is to have these businesses in Kaysville, and the amount of revenue that the city receives from these businesses. It is to our great interest to support these businesses and give them all, you know, and help them to succeed, because it's tough in Kaysville. I mean, we're kind of a drive-through, and the vast majority of people from Kaysville, they go to Layton or they go to Farmington to do their shopping.
Yeah, and it didn't used to be like that. People would come to go to Bowman's, and people just don't do that anymore. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a good education opportunity.
You know, get their names out, and, you know, hey, this is our family. Family takes care of family. That's what it needs to be, and they need to get into that mentality. Appreciate what you're doing.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
definitely.
Thank you for
Just,
being proactive.
if you'll contact me, you can email me or call me. My information's on the website. And definitely, we'll get together with other people and we'll get some things going.
Okay, thank you.
All
Well,
right.
thank you, council.
Thank you, Erin.
It's been nice to be here.
Thank you.
Erin.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for taking the time to be here.
And Sarah.
And Sarah. Thank you. The next item on our agenda, just going back to number 3, is Chris here by any chance? Chris Bowling? Okay. Next on our agenda is call to the public. This is the time of the city council meeting when we open the microphone to any of you in attendance that would like to address the city council. There are no public hearings associated with any of tonight's agenda items, so if you'd like to address the council regarding something that's on tonight's agenda, this would be your opportunity to do so. Call to the public is also an opportunity to give any feedback or ask questions to the council that you would like to present. We do ask that you try to keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Our city recorder does keep track of time up here, so when you hear the subtle beeping, that's an indication that your time has expired. With that, we'll open call to the public.
Yesterday evening, my name is Gregory Frank. Yesterday evening, I was talking to the mayor and wanted to, that quick. I know you're not to get me there, Dean.
That's funny.
The idea I've had is that, I'll just tell a real quick story. A couple of city council meetings ago, there was a discussion of road improvement that included Burton Lane and the pavement of Burton Lane, and Councilman Adams mentioned something about a storm drain problem down there, and there was a discussion about that, and I was sitting back there and I wanted to ask a question, and it was approved, and the bid was given out, or the contract was given out that night, and I was thinking, is this thing going to be paved and then have some excavation come in and maybe dig up a little bit of that asphalt after the fact? And I couldn't ask that question because of the format of the meeting. So the suggestion I have, and I talked to the mayor about this, is I want you to consider allowing, as you go through the items in the agenda toward the end, and maybe even before you have a vote, if there is a vote, that you allow the public to not necessarily comment, but to ask a question or two. And I know the time, we're here a lot and it's long, but would you please consider allowing us to maybe ask a question or two? I know it will help my mental state, if you would. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for your good service. This is Laureen Kamalu, Planning Commission, and I just thought I would share something that will help Erin. She has such good ideas and great interests for businesses in Kaysville. There will be actually a chance for local businesses, business owners who live in Kaysville, and also businesses that are located in Kaysville to gather together coming up in a couple of weeks. So I wanted to make sure that everyone knows about it. It's just recently an idea, and so that's the reason probably the word hasn't spread a whole lot yet, but we aim to work on that, and I'm sure you will have ways to be able to help. But just testing the waters to gather people to the police station on Thursday morning. It will be April the 14th at 8 a.m. There's actually a guest speaker who is going to come who's presented a similar opportunity to businesses in Layton, who helps businesses have a stronger online presence, how they can help people be more aware of their business online with online marketing. So there's a person who has offered a presentation that was well received in Layton. He is going to come do it in Kaysville. On that morning, there's that community room in the police station, so that's where it will be held. We lost a little bit of time getting the word out to businesses just because of all of the busy things going on in the city right now. But we are getting word out to as many businesses as we can. It can be posted anywhere you would like for it to be posted on the site. And we hope that there's enough interest to keep this going, perhaps monthly. I've just volunteered time for a while for business support in Kaysville for almost 2 years now. And again, that kind of ebbs and flows based on time. But I think we're excited to get this going. I think I've talked to a number of business owners in Kaysville who have been excited about the possibility and intend to come and to continue coming. And so, just to let you know, and I will let Erin know, although she stepped out for a second, but I think she'll be excited, and I think there really is interest in this in our community by consumers and the businesses themselves. So we're excited to get that going and plan to reach out to businesses individually and personally over the next 2 weeks to help as many know. And please help with that. We would love.
Someone's just, dying to stay in their seat because they have something we want to say. Occasionally we'll ask if there's any additional comments, but that might be something worth at least trying. I like the idea of, I don't want to by any means silence people or feel like they can't elaborate, but sometimes a thought-provoking question, just, hey, have you considered this, might be good for our discussion. So I would recommend we try that and remind me. I've been conducting this for just over 6 years. Sometimes it'll be a little bit of a change, but I think it's a good recommendation that we can at least try. To Lorraine Kamalu's comment, I've about this building a stronger business presence online. I've had conversations with Lyle. I know that she has talked with, and Lyle's done a little checking as well on this presenter, and it sounds like he's a great presenter, and sounds like it'd be a real benefit for businesses. I would, if you coordinate with Councilmember Lee, then we can also get that announcement out. She can work with Anne Marie to get the announcement. We could even email it out to all of our business owners. We don't often spam them with information, but on things that are of value, to me that would seem like an appropriate use for that form of communication. But if you coordinate that with Councilmember Lee, then we could gladly. Agricultural to R1 LD, residential, single family, low density. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, I'm going to describe the next item as well, which is preliminary plat for the same property. This property is located down in the southwest part of town, just west of Sunset Drive. Currently, property is zoned agricultural. This is the junior high school here and the Snow Horse Elementary down here. This is a small piece of property that's still left in private ownership between the subdivision to the south and the schools to the north. You can see it outlined here on the aerial photo. Symphony Homes, who is developing much of this area in the Sunset Equestrian Estates, has got the parcel under question, under contract. I would like to get some entitlement on it so they can close that deal. Proposal is to extend, I'm sorry, I don't know recall the name of the road there, but extend the road up into a cul-de-sac into that property and access it that way. It would just be a small cul-de-sac there on the end of the road. They are requesting the R1 LD zone. However, as we look at the subdivision plat closely, all the lots meet or exceed the R120 zone, except for the one lot, I believe it's this one, is about 18,000 square feet, so just a couple thousand square feet shy. I asked them if they'd look at just getting that to a 20,000 square foot lot, and because of the cul-de-sac, it was difficult with the frontages to adjust those lot lines to do it. Again, the subdivision adjacent to it, the Sunset Equestrian, is done as a PRUD subdivision with a lot of variation in lot size, lots as small as 12,000 square feet, so the LD zone seems very compatible with that. And again, the properties to the north are both schools. The current owner lives to the east, so it seems very compatible. So the request tonight is to rezone the property from A1 to R1 LD, and then to do the preliminary plat approval for the 6-lot subdivision.
Well, Andy, just a question. Where the original subdivision I assume just south of it,
Yes.
that you have. How's that going to affect the lots? I'm assuming what happened is you had the road that just kind of went up and it just made an elbow right there.
The pointer.
That's correct, yes.
First time I've ever used one of these. Like right here, does this affect these lots? How are they going to develop this? I'm assuming this is just going to go straight through right here?
Yes, and it's the same owner, and so they will have to come back and modify that little section. It'd just be a T intersection instead of a 90-degree.
Okay.
And some of these, what I assume is these lots will just go this way, and they'll have to adjust them down there a little bit, but it should have very little impact.
But I mean, it'll be okay for lot sizes, they'll stay within
Yes.
covenants and everything?
They'll have to come back and modify that section when they're ready to build it. That is one little caveat, is currently, as you can see on the photo, they're only built to here.
Mm-hmm.
This road is not there, so that road has to be in place before they have access to this property.
Okay. Just another question. Right in this area here, you know, it comes in here and here's your circle.
Yes.
Is there going to be access that goes from this road into the, say, the junior high or not?
They've done that in the past. They have right in this area a walkway from this road through to the schools.
Okay.
So if you feel like that's an important, they're not showing it currently on the plat, but it could
Okay.
be suggested.
So you're saying in this area there is a pathway?
There is, yes.
Okay.
Well, there will be. It's not
Okay,
built
because
yet.
the only problem with this is, of course, I mean, there's a lot of area there that you don't have a connection onto Sunset. And you have once this is fully developed, there's going to be a lot of kids walking to school.
Yeah, this little
Yeah.
red stripe on their current overall preliminary plat is the walkway from the subdivision
Okay,
over to the
great.
schools.
All right, well, that answers my question.
So I'm sorry, so to this additional portion then?
This is right here.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Was that your question?
Yes, it was. As Councilmember Page brings up a really important point, is we've met a few years ago with the community councils of Centennial and Snow Horse. That was, as they identified some danger areas, that was from Sunset Equestrian Subdivision north on Sunset to Centennial Junior High was one of the key areas. That would be great to have that access and would get a lot of those kids, at least that are on this side of in this part of the neighborhood, out of or off of Sunset Drive in a much more safer route. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Would that be something that would need to be made as part of the motion for the preliminary plat, or does that go without saying so we don't miss that connection somehow? And who's going to pay to improve it?
If you feel like that needs to be done, I would recommend that you include that in the motion as a condition of approval.
Is it on the plat of the other phase
On
for that part?
this area here, it is on that plat. That is approved and in the development agreement.
Well, that's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's good enough. They'll have to come in and modify because of the,
They'll have to modify that development agreement to change these 3 or 4 lots here and extend that road in.
and
That'll
at
be-
that time, we can then revisit that discussion. and
You can make sure it's
that
still contained there, yes.
It's still there. Okay.
Well, but if the existing development agreement has a connection, the connection stops here, right? I mean, so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's, tell me where.
Went to the school property.
Oh, so it stops, okay, so it stops here on the field then?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume there's nothing improved, so it'll be a pathway to the grass,
Yeah.
the school's
Just
lawn?
a cut through into the playground area.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, I'll admit if the developer, maybe, will you bring back that other plat, the plat?
Is that common to approve a section that doesn't really have a road approved to going into it yet?
With preliminary plat, when it's part of a master planned area, that's not uncommon.
But they're going to have to modify the development agreement for this portion anyway to build the road, right?
That's correct.
I might just say, I would be all in favor of instead of this, which is if they're going to modify the development agreement anyway and build a trail that's going to empty into a grass field, to move that access to something either here or here. Just a suggestion, maybe it doesn't work, but then you've actually got a trail that's going to a hard surface, not just a trail that's going to a field. Of course, maybe the idea is more, hey, these neighbors can access this field, so it's like accessing a park, but just a suggestion.
Yeah, that was my thought, too. I'm trying to decide what that is right there.
Andy, can you go back to the other map that shows where the trail would be?
Yeah, I don't know where it intersects with. That's ruined it.
I wonder if those are.
And maybe that doesn't work, maybe that walks it into a back of a cubicle, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I think they've got
Right now,
some portables.
Portables.
Yes, I'm sorry, portable, cubicle.
Yeah.
Doesn't even work in a cubicle.
These are the cubicles currently at Centennial Junior High.
Portables.
Sorry, did I say cubicles? You got me wrong here.
that trail will come in somewhere here, and you can see that there is a walking path around the perimeter of the ball
there
field.
is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah,
Good.
okay.
Yeah.
Remember
I'm
it was
okay
there.
In my mind, I wasn't aware of the walking path, I couldn't really see that. That feels a lot better. If there was any reason to move it in any other place, I wouldn't be opposed either, but that at least it feels like a walkway that's going to something.
Is that a walking path that is part, the school district?
Yes.
Maintains?
Yes.
Okay.
That's great.
I think the idea is to serve both the junior high and the elementary school, so they tried to center it a little bit.
That's great.
Terrific.
Okay.
That'd be valuable for both schools then.
Excellent.
All right, so we have two items that we're considering a rezone of 4.50 acres of property. Well, the staff report was for both items, but we'll take two separate motions probably to be safe. So first item of consideration is the rezone of 4.05 acres of property from A1 to R1LD.
I'll make the motion to approve the rezone of 4.05 acres of property at approximately 880 South Sunset Drive from A1 to R1LD.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Chris Snell and a second by Councilmember Susan Lee. Any further discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, Councilmember Garn, will you start a vote?
Aye?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Voting is unanimous. And then takes us to the next item related to this topic, which is Sunset Equestrian Phase 19 subdivision preliminary plat at approximately 880 South Sunset Drive, consisting of 6 lots on a cul-de-sac street. I would welcome a motion on that item.
Well, yeah, I'll motion that we approve the Sunset Equestrian Estate Phase 19 subdivision preliminary plat at approximately 880 South Sunset Drive, consisting of 8 lots and a cul-de-sac.
I'll second that.
6 lots.
6 lots, yeah.
Okay, 6 lots.
Thank you. A motion by Councilmember Page and a second by Councilmember Lee for approval of the preliminary plat as outlined. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Councilmember Adams, will you start a vote for us, please?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Next on our agenda is council member reports. I have a report. Unless somebody else would like to go first, and then I can.
Find your report.
No one, really?
I will go first.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'll help you out. I have from the Parks and Rec Department several things for you. So we'll hand these out, send some your way there, and then I'll send the rest down this way. What I'm handing out here, and actually if you could leave one, Susan, there on Dave's pile, we'll make sure that gets into his box. That is the list of 4th of July events coming up with dates, times, and the calendar basically for the 4th of July events. As you know, we don't just celebrate on the 4th itself here in Kaysville. We celebrate for about, a week before and a week after, it seems. So we will have a number of activities, plus there's some contact information for you there. Now, the next thing I'm handing out to you is the calendar of, the entire calendar of events for 2016 of community events, not just the 4th of July, but this includes all the other activities.
Hang on for just one second.
And everything else.
Did we lose you, Councilmember Adams?
Just a minute.
While we're handling technical difficulties, I'll go ahead and pass these out.
It is, sorry, 801-336-7792.
The mailbox belonging to 80133.
You got one, John?
Yes.
I'll give one here for the record. So.
7792.
Hello?
We got you back?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you guys.
All right.
You didn't miss anything.
Well, thank you, Susan, I appreciate that.
Oh, was Larry talking?
Chris.
No, it was me. That's okay. So I've now hounded out
Oh, nice one, Susan.
an entire 2016 calendar of community events. There is also the Parks and Rec Department, the Parks Department really is going to be planting 3 large trees around the new.
I didn't get the 2016.
Oh, you didn't get that? Sorry, Mayor.
I was playing with the phone.
There you go.
We lost him again.
Wow.
Councilmember Adams, are you gone? Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
keep on going.
I'll keep talking then. So, as you're all well aware, we have a new cabin at Heritage Park, the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers.
It's an old cabin.
Well, yes, it's a new old cabin. It's a very old cabin, actually, technically speaking. But remodeled and refashioned and restored on the Heritage Park property. And the Parks Department is planning to put in 3 large deciduous trees, and they are wondering if any of the council would be interested in making a donation towards those trees. So I'll hand these out. Sorry, that one is actually Dave's. Hand you yours. So in case you are interested, you can see the details. Or how to do that. And finally,
I'm here.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Dave. From the Parks and Rec Department, we also have a directory of contact information in the department for those who are responsible for different areas that Parks and Rec are involved with. So if you have questions, or if you happen to be out and about and you see something happen with, where someone approaches you about ice melt or, cemetery concerns, and you have questions about that and need to direct those to someone, you now have a name and a number to go to from the Parks Department.
That's great.
That's nice. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Oh.
Did I take up enough time for you, Mayor?
Yes. Thank you. I have a couple council member reports. As we look at our council agenda and our participation, it's nice to have people here tonight at our meeting, but we also have people every week that are joining us, oftentimes from home. You may be aware that we've launched a service. We haven't done our official presentation on it because we wanted to make sure we had all the bugs worked out. For about the last 6 months, we've been broadcasting our city council meetings live on the internet. We utilized YouTube live streaming. It's something that we've been doing for some time, and we've been trying to perfect the process. Back when we initially started this, we We were using a company, I think it was called Livestream was the name of the company. It was a little bit shaky, and it would break in about every 15 minutes with a 60-second commercial. And so a few people would say, you know, I missed whatever you said, I missed it because I had to learn which toothpaste was the best. But and so we didn't really love that. At the time, YouTube didn't offer live streaming unless you were a really big organization. We noticed that the LDS Church was live streaming their conference on YouTube, a general conference, and said, hey, maybe we can revisit that again. And so we have set up Kaysville Live. Anyone can visit KaysvilleLive.com, and it will take you to our landing page on the city website that will give you a live stream of our city council meeting in full 1080p high definition. The sound is great. You can actually hear quite well. And so as a matter of fact, right now we have 13 people watching from remote locations. Well, I guess I'm one of those because I'm looking at the feed. There's a delay of about 30 seconds, but it's about as live as you can get. It is a pretty exciting. This camera up here was a one-time investment of $2,500, which includes an encoder built in that encodes the video straight to YouTube. There's a couple of benefits that come with that. YouTube doesn't charge us to stream. YouTube doesn't charge us to store our videos. So this little fancy red switch over here on the wall, the camera feeds straight to YouTube. There is no need for a computer in between, although our staff, oftentimes from home, Jordan, I believe, from home is controlling the camera and panning around the room. Sometimes they'll come here, sometimes they'll do it from a remote location. But with that one-time investment, all of our previous city council meetings are also located on our Kaysville Live channel. So you can go back. If you join the meeting 15 minutes late, you can still start at the beginning. You can replay what someone just said. You can fast forward, you can rewind, and immediately it's available to view. So it's pretty exciting. It has caught the attention. I serve as the first vice president for the League of Cities and Towns, and they were looking at possible presenters for the League of Cities and Towns conference that's taking place next week in St. George. I shared with them what we had done. Ryan Judd, our IT manager, our GIS administrator, IT manager, our do-all guy when it comes to all things technology, has spent a lot of time researching this and making it so it works. So you turn on that switch and it just starts the feed, and you turn it off and it ends the feed, and it's on YouTube, available for everyone. So at the League of Cities and Towns conference next week, Ryan will actually be presenting to all cities on how you can live stream your meetings with a $2,500 investment. So it's pretty dang cool. If you go to our transparency site, there's a couple of things you can do. You can see the city council agenda, which is on the wall over here. You can also download a complete copy of the city council's packet. So everything that we're looking at tonight as council with staff reports and maps, you all have access to that as well. When the meetings conclude, Maria uploads an audio copy of the meeting so that you can listen to it, and we also link to the video. So if you go on and you want to look at our March 1st City Council meeting, you can look at the agenda, you can look at the packet, you can listen to the audio, and you can view the video, and so it's pretty exciting. So I wanted to just mention that, congratulate Ryan, and publicly express appreciation to him. It has been a lot of work and a lot of research, but we think we have perfected it now. There's at least one other Davis County city who has met with him the last couple of weeks saying, hey, you've got it all figured out. How can we do that? Because it's pretty neat. We have 13 watching now. We've had, I think the most we've had since we've been doing it, it's about 90. But to have 90 people watch and not have it hiccup and be pretty consistent is pretty neat. So, KaysvilleLive.com. I expect you'll all have it on your favorites or set your homepage. The other item I wanted to update the City Council on, the City Manager Review Committee met last Friday, and as you're aware, we had 61 applications. We provided copies to each of the City Council members and asked them to review and rank their favorites. I provided a copy as we met as a committee of the whiteboard, where we kind of ranked everybody's votes and counted it up, and then we decided to move forward with 6 interviews, which we completed last week. And as part of the process that we put forward, the city council or the review committee would recommend to the city council who our top 3 individuals are that we would like to recommend to the city council. At this point, we're probably, I've let those 3 individuals know that we will likely be calling them in for an interview, but wanted to do 2 things. We're probably not quite to the point of releasing their names or where they're from. We'll need to still have a discussion on what the proper format is for that meeting, and some of them work as city administrators in cities, and so we want to be sensitive to announcing them right off the bat. That being said, for the council, the 3 that we're recommending based on your lists are number 23, number 25, and number 42. And so those could be lucky numbers, I guess, but if that's helpful. And we want to, as soon as we possibly can, let all of you know who our finalists are. We just want to make sure that they are aware of the process that we're going to follow, and so that they don't get caught off guard with their employers. The next thing then is what we wanted to look at was timing of when we can conduct those interviews. Next week, for the most part, is shot because of the League of Cities and Towns conference. The following week is a possibility. I have commitments almost every night. It's a little more difficult for me. I think Councilmember Snell may be out of town, but I was going to ask or suggest, if we're meeting on the 21st, if either the 19th or 20th would be a possibility and we would possibly hold the meeting here. We anticipate maybe giving an hour for each one of the finalists for the council to interview. Before that time comes, we'll come up with a recommended questions. We'll ask the council to come up with some questions and maybe have 8 or 10 questions that we ask all of the candidates so that they can be scored fairly, I guess, if you will. And we may have a couple of activities or things, presentations that we'll ask them to do. But we'll get more on that coming up here shortly. But probably the most important thing is to look at what the possibilities are as a date to hold that meeting.
The Tuesday 19th or the 20th are fine for me.
I am out both days. So I don't get back the 20th until in the evening, 7:30 or so in the evening. So I would be out both the 19th and 20th. I'd really rather do it another time, but I understand, whatever the council majority chooses to do there.
I think it would be very important to have all of us present.
Are you gone that whole week, Chris?
No, I get home the night of the 20th.
But you're gone on Monday as
Yes.
well?
Yeah, I actually leave on Sunday, the 17th.
The other option, this may sound we could also do it on the 22nd, which is a Friday. It might be easier for some of our candidates. My gut tells me they'll come anytime, and I'm sure staff would love nothing more than to spend their Friday night here. It's bad for you. The other option we could look at would be Wednesday, April 13th. It's not a great day for me, but this is pretty important, so I can work around that, especially if we're limited on other options.
I can do it on that day.
That works for me.
13th is fine for me.
13th is a
Wednesday.
Wednesday? Yeah, I can do it either time. I think they can miss me at youth court one day for that, to get us all together. So.
Councilmember Adams, does Wednesday, April 13th work for you?
Yeah, that works.
So if we said Wednesday, April 13th, maybe tentatively mark your calendars for, how early do you want to start? 5:30? If we start at 6 and do an hour each, that's going to 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9. We'll end shortly after 9, assuming that we want to take a few minute break. We could start at 5:30, do the next one at 6:45, and the next one at 8. That would give us an hour and 15 minutes for a break in between if we wanted. So should we say, does
I think that's better.
that work?
That works.
So 6:30
Wednesday, April 13th at 5:30.
or 5:30?
And 6:45 and 8.
The City Manager Association was very helpful in helping us put together some questions. Each of the candidates were asked the same questions, and I think we've got some great finalists. That meeting will just consist of the City Council, is who will participate in that. And again, as far as what the right protocol or procedure is, we'll find out whether that what the setting is for that meeting, whether it's an open meeting or a closed meeting. I'm just not certain. I think we have the flexibility, but we'll make the candidates aware of the date, and we'll take it from there. So that is my update on that. That is all I have for my reports. Any other council member reports?
Yeah, I think there's just a couple of things that we probably ought to talk about in regards to, first of all, the records that are shredded in the city. As we're aware, we have somebody on the council who has been aggressively trying to get information of records from the past, trying to help with us in putting together new policies and procedures. Seeing things the way they were done helps correct the way we can do it going forward. And so I would ask that if we could, for at least the next 6 months, put a stop on any shredding of documents in the city so that those will be available as the research and things like that are done.
So that'd be a date of, say, October 1st? I think that's 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
John, what is the current document disposal policy? How long do we keep records before they can be disposed?
It depends on the record.
So there's an archiving policy. Is it totally up to the city to decide what that is, or is there a state minimums? State retention schedule. So pretty much follow that. Okay.
What is it?
Yeah, what is that? State retention policy. I understand it's
I
different
can tell
for
you it's
different types of
complicated.
documents, but.
And it depends on the record, it depends on the document. For example, accounts payable.
Will you talk in the microphone, please?
For example, accounts payable is current fiscal year plus 4.
Okay.
And it depends on the record, and you just have to examine which record it is and then comply with the retention schedule.
Current fiscal year plus 4 years.
4 fiscal years, yeah.
So we would have documents for between 4 years and a month to 4 years and 11 months.
The schedule actually says 4 years, but as a matter of policy, we keep 4 years plus the current year. And then when the current year is completed, we drop off that last year.
So effectively, you're keeping it for 5.
Could be as many as 5.
Right.
So does 6 months create any issues with storage? And another, I guess, second question there is how many of the documents are any of them scanned and stored on network drives, or are they primarily still paper storage?
They're stored in various ways.
Yeah.
Some are electronic and some are hard copies.
Okay, so are there any issues there with if you get off the retention schedule by 6 months that you got to purchase new file cabinets or new network storage or anything like that? Or would that be?
Yeah, we just follow the retention schedule, yeah.
No, but I guess I'm saying if we add an extra 6 months to what we normally do, does that create any issues for storage?
I don't think it'd be an issue, no.
So would we be okay doing that, or?
Is that something we need to, I guess I'll just ask, is that something we need a motion for, or just consensus that? Just a
Well,
request?
Just
I guess technically, whether or not we take a motion on something that's not an agenda item, I think if the consensus of the council is to retain for the retention schedule plus 6 months, is that the ask?
Yeah.
I think you could just, well, I mean, I guess, yeah, then let's just take a motion. I don't think it's, if that's what you'd like to do.
Or I guess you could just ask if anyone objects. I don't object personally, so that, yeah.
I don't have a problem with 6 months, especially if it's not going to be a burden on, like, paper storage can be a pretty significant burden with as much paper as we sometimes go through with a number of things.
One of the real issues we face is storage, the storage of those documents.
Right.
So that's what we're always bumping against.
So, in light of that, I think the question that Councilmember Garn was asking about digital storage of some of these, you mentioned that some items are scanned while others are not.
Yeah.
Is that, do we need to get to the point where we are scanning everything or effectively everything?
In fact, you'll see in this year's budget, like we proposed in last year's budget that wasn't funded, a document management system.
Okay.
So all records are scanned electronically.
Excellent. I was hoping Ryan would put that in his request for this year.
And
Talk to
actually,
him about that.
interestingly enough, too, because we had in the insurance department, we're almost there, and apparently we have similar retention schedule, if it's based on the state retention schedule, but we pretty much are 100%. It's taken a long time to get completely away from paper, but the AG has also opined that any documents that have signatures that are official documents, anything like that, are still legal original documents, even if they're, scanned. So you don't have to keep the paper for any particular reason, other than it just takes time to transition to that point where you're scanning everything. But, and also have the appropriate, because some of those too it's not just paper storage, but digital storage is also expensive.
Right.
And you have to organize it in a way that you can get to it easily with some sort of indexing system. And they have their pros and cons too, various indexing systems as to how easy they are to use and how expensive they are. So.
And that's part of what we're looking at funding, right?
This new document management system, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Ryan mentioned that that's something that's very needed beyond what we have right now, just simply for sheer ease of use issues over, the one we have right now is fairly cumbersome to get to the records.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm not sure we need a motion, but as a matter of
I can attest to that.
Okay. All right. So do we need, well, I guess I'll make a motion that we put a hold on doing shredding of any documents in the city for 6 months, after which that time we can continue as your procedure.
I second that.
Okay, my motion and a second is outlined. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. The voting is unanimous.
Okay. And then the other item that I think we need to talk about is it would seem that going forward, if council members want to get documents from certain departments in the city, number one, we would ask that they request them with the approval of the majority of the city council, with the request going to the city manager and having the city manager comply with that request with the approval of the council. And right now we have a member of the city council who would like to have that ability so that it can be, so that the research can go forward. And so I would like to make a motion that we give approval for the council member. Do I need to say the name?
It probably. but
Okay.
It's up to you.
Well,
Or I guess you could do it in more general terms. It's up
Or-
to you.
well, okay, so, yeah, make approval for Dave Adams that he can get the request, that he can make requests for materials that he needs from John Thacker, and that those will be complied with. Did I?
Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second.
Discussion, I don't think I could support the motion as it's presented, maybe if it's modified, but my thought is that rather than just a carte blanche, I don't know what that really means, because frankly, as long as we bring it up, I'm concerned with the volume, the time frame given to request documents, what their purpose is. Councilman Adams has emailed us saying, here's the list, but it's a very long list, and I have no idea what those are for, what it's driving to, or what the purpose is. So to now give him carte blanche to just continue to ask without explaining to the rest of the council, I would support the motion if it's just a casual request or a conversation or getting information from the city, that's one thing, but to request vast amounts of information without the other council members even knowing what that's for, I wouldn't be in favor of this motion. I would be in favor of a motion that says that if they're large requests, they have to come before the full council, and the full council has to understand we are not a governing body of one. We are a governing body of the council, of the group, not of one person. So I would not support the motion as presented.
Well, and if you go back and check the statutes, Jake, it actually talks about how, you know, the council members do need to work through the city manager, except for in the case of inquiry. So there's an exception in there. And so the argument or the conversation we're having here potentially is moot anyhow according to our laws. So there really should be, there's nothing standing in my way of requesting documents. And I've made strides to provide reasoning to you as to what these documents are for. You and I have been tasked with redoing the procurement policy. And in order for me to make an accurate opinion on the current policy, I need to have a clear view of where we've been to be able to present a trajectory of where we should go. So, and the documents, if you really look at them, Mr. Garn, they're very simple in essence. It very simply says, what job does this invoice go to? What job does this invoice go to? What job does that invoice go to? It should take a matter of seconds for a department head to say, oh, that's this job, that's that job. And to be quite frank, I honestly cannot, I'm flabbergasted why that's not the case already. I don't understand why jobs don't have, invoices don't have purchase orders or job names or who received the materials. So, yeah, one of the big items I've got for the procurement policy is to come up with a purchase order system that shows who received the materials, who signed for them, who's going to, you know, be held responsible that 100% of those materials were received and that they made it to their proper job. I'm not trying to insinuate anything here, but I'm saying in the past the paperwork has not really been that great. I've heard that a couple years ago we thought about switching over to digital storage, and that was shot down. We are a little bit in the dark ages, I feel, with some of our paperwork. So the documentation I've asked for is very simple. You know, I'm not asking for blood type or birth certificates or anything of that nature. You know, it's very simple material, and that any business would have readily available in their files already. So I'm trying to figure out a way that we can help the system out and understand where we've been. And I don't think that can be done without organizing and looking at job costing and doing job reports and seeing how things have gone. So.
Well, and I can appreciate where you're trying to go with that in general, but there's no tie to how the specific documents tie into that. And secondly, I guess we just see things fundamentally different, Councilman Adams, that I see this as a project to involve the city directors and employees in improving the systems, and that the council has general oversight and the responsibility to hold the city employees, directors, and the city manager accountable for results. But if we are talking about redoing systems and understanding whether job costing numbers are tied out and whether we can get data and whether we're paper or whether we're in computer systems, I don't believe that it helps to just do a fishing expedition to look for every document the city's ever produced and then try and have you piece it together as a single council person. So we fundamentally disagree on how to go about doing it.
You know, one.
Well, and why is that a problem, Mr. Garn? People disagree all day, every day.
You know, Dave, real quick, let me just make a comment. The thing that concerns me the most is, as a city council member and a representative of the people, I don't want our hands tied when we want to make requests. And that, to me, is probably the most important reason I want to move forward with this, so that we know when we need to have that ability, we can do it.
I completely agree with you on that, Council Member Lee. I think I've never had, in all my years on the council, ever a problem with getting information from any city staff or any city department, whether I was the liaison to that department or not, as a matter of inquiry. That's never been the issue. I think what's coming up now is that there's been the volume of requests, and we've all been privy to some of the emails and the inquiries that are going out, some of them pages and pages and pages long, and the timeframes for those requests to be completed and complied with is I think somewhat unrealistic for some of the departments. We all know we run fairly lean in our departments. We don't have a lot of extra staff, and they're having to start dedicate staff to producing these documents and chasing the documents and making copies of the documents.
Doesn't that draw concern in your mind right there?
Yeah, that partially could be a concern, Dave. If you'll let me finish, though, I think that if we're having all these full-time staff spend their hours chasing the paper here on these inquiries, that there is productivity costs in that. There is I think an issue with that, and again, if it's a one-off request or an inquiry here and there, let me understand what your purchasing process is. I don't think that there's anybody in the staff or in any of the departments that has an issue with discussing that or revealing that information. The voluminous requests about all types of it's pipe inventory or whatever it might be, all at the same time within a matter of a number of weeks, has been entirely cumbersome on city staff. And I think that we've seen now a request from a department head that the majority of the council consult in those instances where there is a large amount of information to be gathered, if that makes sense, if that's something that should go forward, rather than just having it be a matter of inquiry from one council member. And I think that's a legitimate request on the part of staff, given they just don't have the man hours during the day to accomplish all the data requests that are there with the system that we currently have.
Well, if you guys recall back, you've encouraged me to go out and do some things on my own before. So let's leave the whole idea of me acting for myself out of this. I'm acting for and in behalf of the taxpayers of Kaysville City. That is all I am doing. So, let me remind you that our code states that except for the case of inquiry, council members need to go to the city manager with their request. So I'm not sure what the whole debate is about here. The law seems to already support what I've been doing, the law of Kaysville. These documents are not that cumbersome. You see, the reason you think they're cumbersome, if you take the time to go through them, a lot of them are copies, because I'll just send a reminder out a week later, hey, any idea on when this information will be received? And I don't recall ever putting a strict deadline on any of them. I said ASAP would be nice, which just means as soon as possible, keyword possible. So I don't think there's anything asking too much here.
That's actually not true. Some of them said by tomorrow. If
you remember back to the Earth Tech City Council meeting, there was a deadline. I had Thursday encroaching on me, and if you think back to that meeting, I think I vetted myself out pretty well as to what I was doing there. You know, I was able to show the taxpayers where we lost $125,000. So,
You know, Dave, to be quite honest, it doesn't bother me the amount that you're requesting, and in quite honesty, if the files are in such a way that they should be in, the things that you're requesting should not be that big of a deal. And it's a matter of just going and gathering it up and making the copies for you. Yes, it does take some time, but to me, as a representative of the citizens of this city, it's worth it especially since you've already proven what you're able to do with the documents that you receive. And so I have no problem with it.
Well, I just disagree with that statement, Councilwoman Lee, that it's just easy to pull massive amounts of data. That's just not the case. It does take
it's
time.
not massive amounts of data.
It's not massive.
Jake,
Well,
if you're over the,
pretty long lists to pull out from various.
I'd be happy to post them on the city website and let the public decide what they think about it. I don't understand why invoices of $10, $20, $30, $40,000 don't have a junk name on them. I mean, Chris, you're over Park and Rec. How would you feel if you found tons of invoices that were unlabeled and you have no idea where they went to? I said 2 weeks ago on the record, I commended a department head for coming and asking one of his the subordinates underneath him in his department where a $33 expense went to, and it was immediately noted and coded. I'm talking invoices that are tens of thousands of dollars. Do you not think the taxpayers are interested in what jobs those went to? Are you not, as a taxpayer, interested?
Of course we're interested in taxpayers.
I take that as a condescending question, actually, of course. Of
You
course,
know-
the answer is
How
yes,
am I supposed
but
to
here's the
take
thing,
yours?
Councilman Adams, on the one thing you did on geotech, you provided a one-page schedule at the meeting. That was the first time that there was an agenda item that at least, well, the data wasn't provided ahead of time, but at least it was understandable during the council meeting. And you got unanimous support on that because you could demonstrate what you were doing, how the data fed into that, and it made sense. It led to a conclusion. But in this case, it was only after I challenged you in an email to say what you were doing with all of that data that you finally gave a general description of what the purpose was.
Well, that's inaccurate.
I'm not trying to, let me finish. Let me finish. I'm not, let me finish. I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to say that anyone can't get data, or that any council member can't get data, but I also have a right to speak out as another council member with what I feel is going too far, is unreasonable request, a demanding tone, to the point where I believe the morale of the city. I've had city employees tell me from other divisions other than your division that they wonder if they are next, that if their jobs are in jeopardy. And I do have a problem with the way you're going about things, and I can voice that publicly now. So.
Yes, you absolutely can, Mr. Garland. Thank you for that.
You know, I would say that we make two separate motions. I say we make one motion that going forward, that as a representative on the council, if we want to request documents, that we do it with the approval of the council, and that it must be done through John Thacker to get it done. Does that sound like a reasonable motion?
Is that a blanket motion, Susan, or is that on a per request basis?
I would say if it's regarding multiple documents of, what would you say?
Because I don't think the city ever has a problem on small amounts.
Right.
I mean,
right.
and I don't think we need to be even, think they're very good about that. That shouldn't even be an issue. I agree with you, Susan. I think this is probably on a large volume that's going to take some time. I think that's probably a good way of approaching it. And because what that'll do, it'll allow the council, and this is Jake's big concern, that he'll be a part of the process. He can see what the requests, what they are, and then on top of that, the council person that wants that information can explain what they're doing. And
So-
I think that this is a helpful thing.
So should I say if we know that collecting the requested amount of material takes longer than a 30-minute time period or an hour, what would you say is reasonable with collecting of request of information?
I would say an hour is reasonable.
So anything over an hour time period of collecting should come before the city council to get approval that is, that we agree, yes, you can get this material to go to the city manager because of the time frame it will take to collect the data.
I could support that motion, yeah.
I think I can support that.
Is that essentially going against what the code says?
No, it's
So
not.
If in
It's
the case
not-
of inquiry,
It's actually solidifying what the code is so that it's clear in our city what it is.
I think that makes sense. I mean, if you talk to any of the city staff, and this isn't just about protecting city staff, but I think it's important for them to understand that we acknowledge they were hired for a purpose, and you know, with Public Works, for example, I mean, they're supposed to be out monitoring our water systems and monitoring our streets and doing the other things that, and our sewer and storm drains and other things that the Public Works Department does. And when they have these voluminous requests, that does become cumbersome. I mean, as I understand it, I heard from one of the people in the Public Works, for that geotech analysis that Councilmember Adams did, there was something like 4,000 invoices of geotech provided. I mean, that's not something you just, pull out of the filing
that all
cabinet
came from the vendor. That didn't absorb city time. The vendor provided that.
Yeah, I would say, though, that unless you have very sophisticated data search capability and data mining capability, it is not usual to be able to pull together data, although you may have it available digitally, to pull it together into some sort of spreadsheet or meaningful form, and that's why there's database programs like ACL or teammate analytics or different things to say, here's what I'm searching for. I'm going into, because the data can be extremely voluminous, and so if you're going to pull it together into a spreadsheet for a specific purpose that's not a work-related purpose, but it's more of an analysis purpose, that takes time if you don't have those systems there, and that's the point.
Right. Absolutely. Another concern that I have in this is that some of it's one thing to discuss about the productivity of city staff, city employees, and they're not being able to do their regular day-to-day jobs if they're tasked to do, fairly significant volumes of data crunching. I understand also that Councilmember Adams has been approaching our consulting engineer, JUB, for producing data and information from them as well. And I don't have a problem per se with inquiring about that, but there is a cost to that, a very real cost. Those are billable hours. And if they are having to go and track down, estimates that they've put together or bid projects and things like that they've been doing, those are billable hours that will come on our claim sheet from JUB for the purpose of doing that. And I think it's important for us as a council to know that if those inquiries are made where there's a price tag involved, that, a literal price tag involved, that we probably should make sure that that's something we discuss, if that's a meaningful use of the taxpayer dollars.
Absolutely. Just one more thing that I want to share with you, Councilman Adams, and everyone, is that I'm not opposed to, you've told me sometimes privately, that you think I'm opposed to what you're trying to do. I'm not opposed at all, and as a matter of fact, I think to the extent that we can modernize, and if you look at what Mayor Hyatt has done over the years in improving transparency, and we're now going to present to the Utah League of Cities and Towns how to inexpensively be more transparent with having live stream of the council meetings. And so I've always been for progress, and to the extent that we can improve systems, improve controls, and make the city more efficient, I 100% support you in your goals, but I would just say that I think we need to work as a team here, not as the Lone Ranger, because we can all be very supportive of your efforts, and I think all be on the same page with that. But we do need to be open to input about the best way to go about that. And I think that's where we have the fundamental difference, is the way you're going about trying to achieve your goals.
Well, it's the way I'm going about is spending, 40 or 50 hours a week of my own time. I don't see why that's a problem. I go into City Hall and I offer to make the copies myself. I'm spending my time. I'm willing to go and make the copy. If Public Works would like to let me, I'll go sit down with them and I'll do the legwork. I'm not afraid of work. I'm not saying I'm working any harder than anyone else on the council, and I'm not acting like the Lone Ranger. Need I say again, I've reached out multiple times, okay, especially to you, Mr. Barn, because you seem to be adamant about trying to understand what I'm doing. Multiple times I said, Jake, come to my office, come to my home. And I've even tried to get books out, and you changed the subject. I just don't appreciate that. I'm not trying to act alone here. And quite honestly, I think the citizens of Kaysville would appreciate some of the work that I'm doing, would appreciate some of the effort that I'm putting in. And if you don't like what I'm doing, at least like the fact that I'm putting in the work ethic behind it. I'm not really sure here why we shouldn't be able to go and be involved with our departments. I think that's an old school way of doing things. And if you don't want to be heavily involved with your department, I would say that's your choice. But what are we here for, really? Are we here as puppets? Or are we here to offer our expertise to really understand our departments thoroughly, the best that we can, which takes a lot of work to go in and observe systems, observe SOPs, the standard operating procedures that they have, and then to be able to offer advice and be able to help make it better. I think that's why we're all here. So, and being stopped from doing that actually draws more suspicion than anything else.
Okay, I'd like to comment on that, Dave, because I think that your stated goal, and you have said that a number of times publicly over the last 3 months, that is your stated goal, and you view that as your role and all of our role to be the watchdog, so to speak. And to a certain extent, I do agree with you. I think what I will walk us back a little bit on this is what Council Member Garn was saying a few minutes ago is the approach. And the approach that you've taken isn't simply to go into the department to which you liaise and monitor how they do. There have been allegations of criminality. There have been allegations of criminal wrongdoing in that department made by you publicly that are, I think, to a degree...
Are you getting into private meeting material?
No, I don't think so. I'm not saying any of the content of that, but I don't think it's any surprise or any secret to anything or anybody, certainly in the way you campaigned last fall for office with regard to how you view that particular department. And so the approach that you've taken there has been one of where there have been, the employees in that department feel threatened, and they indicate that they have been verbally threatened, their jobs have been threatened by you when you have gone into those departments. That is a problem. That is a problem with the approach that's been taken. Now, of course, you can deny it, and they can say it. It's a he said, she said, and who knows what really happens. That's why there's now had to be a new policy that if you go into that department and talk with anybody, you've got to have an independent third-party person with you. Because these things keep happening, and it's a, we've even had some legal issues with that. I think there's a problem with the approach, and I think that's
and all these requests are made by email. You're all carbon copied in on them. I think we should put this out to the people. I say we put this on the website and we let the people decide. If they would like us to be thoroughly involved with our departments, let's put a ticker on the website, a yes or a no box. Let's put a poll out there. It really isn't up to us.
That kind of
The city
poll is not
belongs to
scientific,
everyone
Dave,
here.
first and foremost, but and I appreciate you feel like that's a mandate you received from the voters, and I don't disagree that there are many voters that are frustrated with departments or with, in general, how Kaysville has been run over the years. I don't think that the majority of Kaysville citizens expect each of us as city council members to be sitting in our departments watching over their shoulders day in and day out for everything that they're doing. And
No, I'm not saying that.
I don't think that
But
that's
how
what
do you
they
get to
elected us
know-
to do. And frankly, I don't think any of us have the time to do that. So, I think it's a difference of approach here. I think we do have an important responsibility to have oversight over these departments that we all have oversight as council members. I think it's important that we do acknowledge the role of the city manager in all of this, that he has the responsibility to for hiring and firing, and if there are, concerns that we have about the performance of individuals, that they are raised to him, whether by individuals or whether as a council as a whole. But I think the approach here has been one that isn't completely you're going in and all innocently with nothing more than a clean sheet of paper and wanted to just see how things are done. I don't think that's really how you're representing is really how that has happened by virtue of some of the issues that we've encountered in just the 3 months since you've been on the council. And I think we need to make sure that's why this is coming to a head right now. As I was saying, in my 8.5 years now of being a council member, I'd have never had a problem with any city staff, any city department providing information to me. But I think that's largely because the approach I've had is to go in and ask them about what they do, and not in a caustic and not in a way, I'm not approaching them from the perspective of I think they're doing something criminal. And I
think you stated that here. I think you stated that here, Mr. Snell, not me. And what you imply about people living in fear, why would you live in fear if you have nothing to fear? I'm not implying anything by that statement, but what you're saying to us here doesn't paint a pretty picture. I don't have the power to remove or fire anyone. So for someone to think that I do, what are they running from? Okay, so, and if you don't like my style or my approach, you know what? We all are indifferent on one another's styles and approaches. It's really whatever the means is to the end that matters so much, not the means. I mean, if the end goal is to be successful as a city together and to be running as efficiently as possible, and if there is a council member who does have the willingness to put in his shoulder to the wheel and put in the added work, why would you bridle and throttle that down?
So just for the record, you're saying that the ends justify the means?
I'm saying the end is what is critical, what's important, the end goal. I'm not saying any means necessary, but the fact that you don't like my personality versus your personality hardly to me is an argument to slow down a guy from working hard and working on something.
Yeah, I certainly don't feel like I want you to work less hard, or that it's even my business how hard you work. I don't think that's the point. It's, I think what we're asking for, and we have a motion on the table, I guess, that we should probably get back to, but I guess my only point is that we include the entire governing body in fundamentally reorganizing, if that's what it leads to. I sort of think that these sorts of things happen organically over time, and you can certainly expect that they, have a timeline, a project timeline. You can involve people who have done these sorts of things before. You can take State of Utah success framework ideas. You can have consultants look at processes if you need to, but primarily, and I've found this every time there's ever been a project done, it's the people within the organization who have to gain that knowledge, who have to own it, who have to maintain it, who have to build it. And that is a very key fundamental. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter how much work Dave Adams or Jake Garn does on the council until you get the people who are daily doing the work to make those changes within the organization themselves. And that's where our role as stewards of the people comes in, to make sure that there are objectives, goals, values, a culture, that all those things that primarily as the CEO, and this was the concept of the way the council member was formed in the state of Utah, with hiring a city manager that is the CEO, reporting to the board kind of concept, where the CEO is responsible for all those results. And to the extent that any of us become very knowledgeable in those processes, I think that's a good thing. So I would never want to say that your work, that you should cut back on your work, or that you should give up on your objectives. But I am saying that I think you need to understand that we're a team. You don't have to take this all on your own shoulders. And so with that, I'll turn it back to the mayor to maybe...
Well, as I stated before, I've been instructed by all of you at that table to go solo and I'm not going to discuss that any further, but you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And so, well, okay. Yes, I have. And I have made every effort to reach out to you, Jake. Anyway, this is for another time. We're wasting the citizens' time with this. I'd like the citizens to know that I have received a letter from the head of Public Works attorney denying all future requests for documentation. Okay, if no one at that table right now has a concern with projects that are called quote-unquote emergencies given out to a single source bid for $24,000, labor only, need I remind you, this doesn't include the whole scope of the project, but for the labor only, and then the bill that you finally pay out is $60,000, if you don't raise an eyebrow to that, I'll be genuinely, no comment. So I don't understand why there's such a concern that I am beating down on the Public Works Department by simply saying, where does this invoice go? What job did this invoice go to? Explain to you, and I'm going to use a name here, where Mike Blackham, I personally watched him bet out a $38 invoice. I thought it was great, and I congratulated him. So I'm not sure where to go with this.
I think the letter from the attorney of the Public Works Department has been mischaracterized, Dave. He did not say he's not going to comply with any future requests from you. He simply inquired and requested that the council consider any future, and I don't remember the exact verbiage, but the implication I got was any future excessive or cumbersome requests that they go through the council, and the council agree to have those requests, and then they'll be happy to support that. So effectively what Councilmember Lee is proposing is what that letter was asking. It wasn't just a blanket statement that they were not going to comply with any future requests from you. So I want to make sure that the record's straight on that.
Yes, the record's straight. Thank you, Chris. So then I would like to entertain, in lieu of time, the idea we're all together here right now. We won't be together for 3 more weeks. You've all seen the emails of what I've asked for. It's very simple information. It's ABC kindergarten level information. Where did invoice number blah, blah, blah go to? What job did it get expensed to? And reiterating here why that isn't already in there is a little bit disturbing. So I'd like to ask you, council, are you going to ask Mr. Thacker there to move forward in a timely manner of this information that has been requested for the last 3 weeks?
I don't know if somebody wants to answer Mr. Adams' question. The motion on the table, the original motion was that to allow Mr. Adams to move forward. I think Councilmember Lee was recharacterizing her motion, but didn't actually do that. So we currently have a motion and a second on the table, unless you want to withdraw and then propose a new motion. But we need to at least recognize the original motion, which was to authorize Councilmember Adams to get the information he needed. So I defer back to you, Councilmember Lee.
Yeah, I would like to stick with that motion so that he can proceed in gathering the materials and information to complete his research.
And then your subsequent comment about the 1 hour, currently that's not part of your current motion as it stands.
No, it's a separate one.
Okay. Is that still your second?
Yeah, I'm okay with that on the second.
Okay.
On the original motion?
Right.
Well, just a clarification on the original motion, did you also say that if it's, I mean, we're kind of going down the course of if it's a voluminous request, the council needs to be included in the purpose as a whole and where it's going? You were kind of suggesting that, but you don't want that in the motion?
No, I don't think it has to be that specific. I think if it's just a request for, I think Dave has already given us a list, and we're quite clear with what he's asking for at this point. And then moving forward, as he gets more lists to us, then we can deal with it as they come.
Well, I think I do acknowledge the point that on the original motion that Councilman Adams can continue, although I think there's some pushback, as Councilman Snell mentioned, to the way he's going about it, that he continue to request whatever he would like, whether we make the motion or not, right? And the motion that you're making is to at least go through the city manager, is that correct? Just to clarify.
Yes, yes. So
would you restate the motion, just so that, I'm sorry, rather than me questioning you, just so I understand what the motion is exactly?
Well, I guess first we need to clear up the one that's on the table. And then,
No, that's what I mean. The one that's on the table, would you mind restating
yes,
what that motion is?
that the city council gives approval for Councilman Dave Adams to continue his request for materials and information in regards to the, to this point, the list that he has submitted, and that he's able to get that information.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's only up to and including the list of information he's currently presented?
Right, right. And then going forward, as he gives us more list of information that he would like, we can go ahead and give that approval if it's, and that is if it's in the volumes of what he is presenting. Now, if it's well, that's a different motion, so.
So the original motion, and thank you for that clarification, is to give authorization to the city manager to carry out the original list of documents that Mr. Adams has requested. That's the motion, and that's your second?
Right.
Okay. I'm going to call a vote because I think on this motion, we've had plenty of discussion. And so, Mr. Garn, will you start a vote?
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-2. Now coming back to the second motion, did you want to make a second motion then for future requests?
Yeah, I would say that I'd like to make a motion as council members, if we request document or information from any department in the city, that the request takes longer than 2 hours, I'll be generous with that, that the request needs to be brought to the council and then approved, and it must go through the city manager.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second as outlined. Point of clarification, is that just several 2-hour requests, or is that during any certain period of time? I mean...
No, if a council member has a request for documents, for any request like that, is there another word that could be used?
Well, usually there's an aggregate clause. I think what you're getting at, Mayor, is if you're requesting 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, then is that, then you've got 10 hours a week, so there's some kind of aggregate clause. I don't know if in this case, it's not really, it's sort of the will of the council type thing, so I'm not sure that that would be necessary. I think it could be interpreted as, you know, a very voluminous request that's going to take more than 2 hours of someone's time. And if that, you know, continues over a period of time, I think that would, you know, just automatically would be understood that that would be something significant enough that the council should consider the purpose of diverting staff resources for that, that voluminous of a request.
Well, and I think that the request has to go through the city manager regardless of the time it will take, and then the city manager can then say, well, that would take longer than 2 hours to get that information. Let's put it before the city council. I don't know any other way to do that.
That's probably a good way of approaching it.
The only concern I have is I think what Mayor was getting at is, you know, if this becomes, you know, and I know, we all know, over the last several weeks, it seems like, you know, on a certain day of the week, the email inbox explodes with, you know, 5 or 6 or sometimes more different emails, each of them with a different request. Any one of them may be less than 2 hours, but in aggregate, there may be, you know, well in excess of 2 hours of time involved in that.
Well, I don't think
That's
that you
exaggerated. There's a total of 3 or 4 emails that have just been re-requested.
There's one I've seen that's been re-requested, I think 3 times, but I know, and I could go back through my inbox, I think there's been several days where the emails have been pretty numerous, I would say, and each with an individual request, whether it's been pipe inventory or you know, something else, and then, you know, the one email that you've now requested 3 times is like 6 or 7 pages long with.
Okay,
You know,
well, we've covered that, so that has been authorized to move forward. So right now, we're talking about future requests will be made to the city manager. If it's determined that the request will take longer than 2 hours, would come back for the council for authorization. Is that accurate?
That is with the motion the second, Mayor. Would it be all right if I just made one more general comment?
Yes.
And what I'd like to say is that these, and I hate to use, I only know how to use my own audit experience, I guess, but when you're auditing, you do test samples to find out how a process works. And primarily now, we don't even do substantive testing until after we understand. We've done interviews with CEOs. I only work in the private sector, even though I'm a government employee. Everything I do is looking at private companies, how they operate, what their control structure is like, management letters of how they can improve controls, and those sorts of things. And we would never start by looking at every invoice, you know, by trying to recreate something from the bottom up. We start by interviews, understanding how an organization works, what their goals, values, strategic plan, and then we go down to the next level of, okay, based on what you've said about your strategic plan, are the controls in place to make sure that happens? So then the next level is testing controls, which is, and then finally, if there's weaknesses in those controls, we might actually test individual transactions to see if there are problems with how those are being accounted for, or if there's certain risks. And we're always looking at the risks of the organization. Well, in a lot of ways, a government organization like a city is no different. There's risks, there's a budget, there may not be a profit motivation there, or stockholders, but there are risks, operational risks, there are financial risks, there's legal risks, all these different things. And then there's the, you know, culture of the organization and how they adopt, you know, various new technologies and controls. And so the cost of starting from the ground up, first of all, you get very confused that way because, and which is my point, when there's just a bunch of data and a bunch of requests and that's all you have, it gets very confusing what to even do with that because you don't understand how it plugs in to the overall operation, and how if you unkink the hose in one place, are you creating a kink in the hose in the other place? So you have to have the overall understanding. And the cost of doing an audit where you were to look at every transaction or go into every detail would be so expensive, it would put private companies out of business to do that. We try to be extremely efficient in doing that. And that's what I'm talking about in the process. So I think some of it is a misunderstanding when Councilman Adams says, well, don't you care about the taxpayer? Don't you care about the citizens? Well, of course. But there's efficient ways to even improve efficiency, and there's inefficient ways to improve efficiency. And that's what I'm trying to also bring to the table, and why I think it's important to bring people together as a team with different backgrounds, experience sets, skills, perspectives. I'll never know, Dave Adams knows more about construction and development than I'll never ever, in 5 minutes of explaining it, than I'll probably ever know. But the point is, you bring different people together, and that's why it's important, I think, on these requests. We know where they're headed, and we have some sort of a strategy for what we want to do, and I think that's the part that's missing. We're hitting some low-hanging fruit with geotech or something else, but we're not really comprehensively looking at the city. And then all these detailed requests that apparently only Councilman Adams understands where he's going with them. So that, I just wanted to, hopefully that makes sense and is not too long-winded. And Mayor, back to you.
To follow up, I think the beauty of this is that we do have somebody on the council who does understand this aspect of the city. And it's something that he's doing on his own dime. And if we had to bring somebody in and pay them to do what he's doing, it would cost the city thousands of dollars. And so I am so appreciative that he is willing to take his personal time and energies and monies and put into this. And not only by going, to the city to get the information, but to going other places. It's invaluable as far as I'm concerned. And I just think it's a great opportunity that we just can't miss.
And I don't want to debate, but again, I want to emphasize that I don't disagree with what you just said. But if you're building a bridge, what about the bridge to nowhere? There's a curly thing that goes over Legacy Highway that's beautifully engineered. I have to compliment the engineers. But I ride by that every day. I hardly ever see anybody going over that bridge. I think, how much did that bridge cost? So there needs to be involvement of different expertise. And so I'm not willing to just cede my responsibility as a city council person to say that we need to bring a lot of different aspects and a lot of different voices. And Councilman Adams can, be a very important part of that, but not the only part of it. So again, I just reiterate that point.
Yeah.
All right, so we have.
I think everyone agrees with that, Jake.
So we have a
Nobody's
motion.
trying to leave you out.
We have a motion and a.
We've actually had a meeting set apart to discuss this stuff in our last work session, and we ran out of time. So, be fair about it.
So we have a motion and a second for all future document requests that will take longer than 2 hours. The request will be made through the city manager. If he determines it's longer than 2 hours, the request would come to the council. Councilmember Lee, will you start a vote?
Aye.
I'll say aye, although I think I would have preferred it to stay at the 1 hour. But
Okay, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The voting is unanimous.
Can somebody help figure out Mr. John Thacker's email? I've included him in a lot of things, and it keeps coming back to me as inaccessible. Is that a real email? Does it go anywhere? Speaking of the bridge to nowhere, how do we get that addressed so that there's a trail of requests and that sort of thing?
John? If Mr. Adams would like to communicate with you via email, which email address should he use is the question.
Mailbox at KaysvilleCity.com.
Mailbox at KaysvilleCity.com. Thank you. All right. Any other council member reports?
just one thing, make sure we get it on the record. Sorry for bringing up another council member report. Utah State University Botanical Center does have is attempting in a lot of ways to become a destination for Kaysville, to bring people. And one of the things they do every year is the baby animal days. I think you mentioned it briefly.
Cool.
It was mentioned earlier today. That is coming up in about a month, a little over a month, on May 6th and May 7th at the USU Botanical Center, where they will have all sorts of baby animals of different varieties, even some that are a little strange to the area, including a miniature yak this year, of all things. But just wanted to make sure that that gets in the record, because that's an opportunity to they bring people from out of state to Kaysville to that event every year, and it's a great thing that the folks there at the Botanical Gardens do. So wanted to make sure that gets in the
They
in the
probably
record.
brought the yak from Tibet.
Maybe Tibet.
That's right.
Miniature yak. Okay.
Miniature yak.
I think we've covered just about all possible things. That's a new one. All right. Any other council member reports? Thank you for that. All right, seeing none, you're hearing none, we'll move to the next on our agenda, which is approval of claims. We have one set of claims dated March 30th, 2016, in the amount of $840,051.33. If you've had a chance to review, I'd welcome a motion for their approval.
You know, I've reviewed that, Mayor. I'd like to motion that we approve the claims as is, except for one item, which is check number 5383 for the amount of $1875.00. That on that particular invoice, we just pay $1,000 instead of the $1875.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval of the claims with the exception of 5383 of 1875.01 to only be an amount of $1,000 paid on that invoice. You have that, Mr. Story? You got that? Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. A motion, we have a motion by Councilmember Page and a second by Councilmember Lee with approval of the claims with the exception as outlined. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Have a question?
All right, well.
Thank you. What is that item for?
That is for legal services for Lisa Watts Baskin LLC.
So is that a legal responsibility of the city? Is there a lawsuit against the city? What is that for?
No, that's just an invoice for legal services.
Okay.
I think we talked about that today.
Well, it is taxpayer money. I think we should know what it goes to. What's it for?
Well, it was a closed-door meeting, so we can't discuss it.
Are you implying to open a closed-door meeting?
Well, you said that, Councilwoman Lee. I didn't say anything about that. I'm just asking what this is for. I think the public deserves to know where their tax dollars are going.
I think that Councilmember Page clarified what it's for. It says right on it what it's for.
Well, I guess I would ask the Dean Story or city manager what that invoice is for.
The invoice is for legal services to Lisa Watts Baskin for legal services for Mr. Dave Adams.
Shall we go deeper, Jay? I'm dying to share this with the public. Mayor, can we have permission? Can we take a vote right now to open up that meeting right now? I'm glad to divulge all of it.
I don't know the answer to that. The discussions that took place in a closed door meeting, and so I don't know the answer, whether or not it's something that we can elaborate on. It very well may be fine. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, Mr. Garn took us down this road, and he's pretty adamant about it. He knows full well that it was a closed-door meeting. So now we seek the public's interest. Perhaps we take a vote and we discuss this right now.
Well, now, look, there's been a couple of references to a closed-door meeting, which I think are sealed, and I do think David Church said something about the council could open them up, but I did not bring that up, just for the record. I just asked what this expenditure was for.
Well, you knew what it was for. Are you saying you really didn't know what it was for after your email today?
Again, Councilwoman Lee, I would suggest that you not keep referring, I think it's fine I can ask a question for the public record what this is for. And I don't know why that would be a problem to be transparent on what that is for, because this is an unusual item.
I agree, it's unusual, but for you to claim that, or act like you don't know what it was for is not
I'm not acting like that at all.
Okay, so your point was to bring it up, right?
My point is to bring it up, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Would anyone care to cut Belshaw King's bill in half to representing the city and Mr. Larry Mills? If we're going to cut Lisa back, I think Belshaw's needs to be cut back. What line item is Belshaw's, Dean?
This is the reason why I'm bringing it up, because I think we're setting a precedent here that if an individual council member takes actions that result in that council member hiring an attorney, that we're setting a precedent for the city to pay their legal expenses.
No, we're not, Jake. If you recall the meeting, the mayor set a rule about that going forward, that would never be the case again. Jake, you need to seriously consider what happened in that meeting and the rules that we set forth. I don't know what you're doing here, Mr. Garn, but I would like to also move that King and King's invoice gets slashed in half too, because Mr. John Thacker used him out of order also. So let's get King and King's also.
Yeah, all I did was ask what this was for to bring it to light, and then I said, is that appropriate to set a precedent there?
You know full well who Miss Lisa Watts-Baskins is, Jake. So that, you know, you're not as white as a scarlet as you think you are here.
I think that's important that be noted.
All right,
So I think it's important that it be noted why King and King was involved too, and I'd like to see their invoice cut also.
Well, and if you're going to point that out, in many aspects, he had every right to do that. So.
That's a different question. That's a different question
for the
than
knowledge of the people.
whether the city should pay
by the
legal
district
expenses of
attorney's
individual
office
council
that I've had every right to do that.
I might recommend, because frankly, I don't know the answer, and I think it is a real struggle, because I might recommend
It is a fine line.
at our next meeting we could certainly get some legal advice on that discussion. I believe the council can. I believe council has the right to move into closed session for certain reasons, not necessarily the requirement to move into closed session for certain reasons. It's a right, not a requirement. So my gut would tell me that you could talk about something in a closed session if you decided to open that. That being said, I'm not comfortable enough giving legal advice because I'm certainly not qualified. It might be in the best interest of the city to get some advice on if you want to delve into this expenditure in more detail. We could do that. There's also another expenditure that Councilmember Adams is inquiring about that might be that you might be interested in delving into in more detail. But just it's the fine line between in the spirit of transparency and in the spirit of legality. And this is the first time I've felt conflicted between those two, because in the spirit of one, I don't want to violate the other. And so I might recommend that we hold off on further discussion. Currently, we have a motion to approve the claims with the exception of claim 5383 to Lisa Watts Baskin, reducing that amount from $1875.01 to $1,000. We can take action on that motion, or if a substitute motion is made, we can also do that as well. But that's probably what I would recommend right now.
Well, if you feel like you'd want to discuss this further, after the mayor, I mean, I could make a motion that we pay the claims except for this.
That one claim.
This one claim.
I actually don't have a problem with the motion itself, and I did want to bring out, though, and I think that's a way to do it. I never mentioned anything about a closed session. I just felt it was important that this expenditure, that we know what it was for.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But I'm willing to support.
We're well aware of where you were going with that, Mr. Garn.
Should we proceed with the first one then, or?
That's up to the council.
Yeah, that's up to the council.
Whatever you'd like to do.
Personally, I think there's enough discussion about it and enough feelings about it. I think it might be worth it to consider paying the entire claims minus that one, pending further discussions.
Well, I think we ought to add King and King in there
A
also.
substitute motion.
We ought to hold King and King out also.
So, okay, well, let me recognize the substitute motion by Councilmember Snell is to pay the claims with the exception of Claim 5383 or Check 5383. Is there a second to that substitute motion?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Snell and a substitute motion by Councilmember Snell and a second by Councilmember Garn to pay the claims with the exception of 5383, pending further discussion. Is there further discussion? I don't know what a substitute motion looks like or how I would even recognize that.
I don't know. Substitute motion, I guess, but.
Okay, with that, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No,
Thank you. The motion carries.
Oh, wait. No, which
I'd like to make
which
a
one are we
motion
voting?
that we withhold King and King's payment.
Okay, aye on that.
Okay, I'm sorry. So the motion to pay the claims with the exception of the 5383 passes 3-2. Thank you. We'll now move on to our next item, which is review of calendar.
So I believe I made a motion to withhold King and King's payment also.
Do you have a check number on that, Dave?
Well,
I don't have it in front of me.
Where are we?
well, I don't know. We had a substitute motion to pay the claims with the exception of, in the discussion clarifying where the vote was, Mr. Adams, the vote took place, and then I believe you offered your substitute motion after the voting was completed. So I'm not sure. I assume we can go back and vote again on the item. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that if someone wants to revisit an agenda item that has passed and offer a new motion and vote again, I can't imagine that would be unacceptable. And so, Mr. Adams, would you clarify, are you asking to go back to the agenda item on claims and offer a new motion for the claims?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that, if I understand your motion, help me just make sure, in addition to holding off 5383, the claim, you're also recommending that any payments to King and King also be withheld from the claims. Is that accurate? Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
I
Okay.
apologize, but where is that? What page is that on?
Yeah, where's the claim?
So let me just recognize we have a motion and a second as outlined. Further discussion or clarification? I believe the motion as it stood was any claims to King and King. That might not necessarily mean the claims are,
I can't support that.
Well, I don't think there's there's not a payment to him, is there?
Not in this claim. I haven't seen one.
Not in this one.
Well, then it's already been paid.
it's possible.
I would like to caution the council, if you agreed to pay for these services in full, you are now recanting that. I caution us all that we might be going down a road that we don't want to go down.
On this set of claims, Mayor, there isn't a King and King claim.
So, Mr. Adams, it sounds like on the claims that are before us, there is not a payment to King and King. So the motion is for the current set of claims. Do you want to keep your motion or withdraw it?
If there's no claim on this cycle period, then that means it's already been paid and the point's moot, and I apologizing for wasting the council's time on this and the city residents' time for bringing this up.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is withdrawn. Appreciate that. We'll move to the next item then, which is review of calendar. we've discussed briefly. April 13th will be our city manager interview. We will make more information available as to the process of that meeting as soon as we have it available. Our regularly scheduled city council meetings, which would normally take place 1 week from tonight, has been canceled because of the League of Cities and Towns conference, which the council will be attending. So with that, we will meet on the 13th for city manager interviews, and we will meet on the 21st, I believe, 3 weeks from tonight for our regular city council meeting. And if there are no other items for the calendar, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone.